the 10.2 instructional video is very similar to 10.1. The difference here is that we are going to talk about the product and the quotient of functions. So similar to 10.2, we can write the operation in the function notation itself. The one thing that I really want to focus on is the idea that, and we've been doing this for quite a while, that we can use a dot to indicate multiplication. Part of the reason we do that is it's tough to, confuse the dot with the x, which is the variable. Easy to do that with the multiplication symbol. What you have to be careful of is there's actually two different types of dots, which I know can be a little frustrating. But basically, we have to make sure that when we see f close dot g of x, sorry about the writing there, we know that it's the product of functions. But if I were to write f open dot g of x, this is something completely different, and we're going to talk about this in 10.3. So that's not going to come up today, but when you see that close dot, I'll exaggerate it just a little bit. When we do this on a test or something like that, I will often use this form instead, because then we can't get confused with the closed dot and the open dot. But the closed dot indicates multiplication. The open dot indicates something called composition, which we're going to do in 10.3. So they talk a little bit about what can happen in these situations. One of the most important things is if my divisor is 0, that point doesn't exist. So here they show f of g of x, or f divided by g of x, but g of x is 0 when x is equal to 2. Look what happens to the teal, the f divided by g of x. It doesn't exist at that point. It actually creates a vertical asymptote. My recommendation for when you're doing these composite functions is to do it algebraically first, and then use your calculator if you want to get a more in-depth look at the graph. Depends on what the question asks you, of course, but very difficult to predict this teal function without using your calculator, because it actually stops when x is equal to +1 and has a vertical asymptote when x is equal to +2. That is difficult to predict, so we are going to use our calculator a little bit more than we did in 10.1 because it can really guide us as to these strange shaped functions.